So, as promised, I was going to do a video looking at the coaching career of Bruce Arena so far after on Saturday that 1-0 win that New England had against FC Dallas. It means that Bruce Arena has reached a historic mark of becoming the all-time wins total in terms of a head coach in MLS, passing the late Sigi Schmid with 241 career wins. But in this video, I'll look at his coaching career, which have now spanned over 40 years, and that, his coaching career in MLS and also with the U.S. national team is definitely a reason why a lot of people, including myself, will consider him the greatest American head coach to ever coach in the American soccer landscape. Now, as I mentioned, his career in coaching started all the way back in the 70s and in 1978 when he started coaching for the Virginia Cavalier college soccer team, and he actually coached all the way to 1995. And back then in the 70s, soccer was started to become a bit more popular with the creation of the NASL, and how the NASL back in the late 70s and into the early 80s was really at its peak with all these big names that come into the league. But after when the NASL died, the sport did really started to kind of decline popularity before it was regained popularity with the introduce of Major League Soccer. But yeah, back then even when Bruce Arena was selected as the first ever head coach to coach DC United, there was a lot of risk in terms of that, because when the first year of the league, a lot of these coaches are either kind of like foreign head coach or coach that basically coach in the college game, and you just don't know whether or not they can basically do well in the professional game. Because I know even though Bruce Arena did very well with the Virginia Cavalier, you don't know if he is going to do well once now he is going to be with a team that there was a lot of expectation that DC was going to be considered the best team in the league. And not only the fact that they of course met that expectation, but they met that expectation in the very first year with them winning the inaugural MLS Cup over the LA Galaxy, though the record that they had in the regular season was not good. 15, 16, and 1. And by the way, that one doesn't actually means the loss total that they had, or even the draw total, because back then in the early years of MLS, there was no such thing as a tie. I mean, when the game does end after 90 minutes in a tie, it goes to this kind of MLS kind of 90s PK shootout kind of way, and that DC did only win one of those. But back then it was also when the league only had like 10 teams, and it seems like the only way you can miss the playoffs is that you have to finish dead last in your conference, and DC definitely did not finish dead last even with the record that they had. And they actually, I think, finished second in the East that year, and of course won MLS Cup against the LA Galaxy, and become the first team to win MLS Cup in this league history. Now in 1997, not only the fact that DC would repeat as champion, but they actually won the Supporters Shield in 97 with a 17, 11, and 4 record. And then in 98, they were trying to go for the three-peat, but unfortunately they weren't able to do so, as they lost to a team that to this day will still become the only expansion team, and probably the only expansion team for a very long time, to ever win MLS Cup in their expansion year. That is the Chicago Fire. And ironically, the team that the Fire of course was coached was by Bob Bradley, who was on that coaching staff with DC United with Bruce Arena in the very first year. So it was kind of almost like a game where it was between the master and the apprentice, and it seems like the apprentice won that one with Bob Bradley getting the better of Bruce Arena in that one. But nevertheless, DC still finished with a relatively good record, 17, 8, and 7 as the record that they had. Now after that season, it seems like Bruce Arena has really become a household name in U.S. soccer. So this is when he kind of had the chance to become the head coach of the national team, as after the U.S., of course, had a relatively successful campaign in the 1998 World Cup in France after reaching out the knockout round, but weren't able to progress it. The U.S. decided to hire him as the head coach in October of 1998, and that, of course, will go all the way to July 2006. And overall, during his first stint with the U.S. men's national team, He finished with a record of 71, 25, and 31, and definitely the most notable mark in his first stint with the U.S. men's national team and coaching there was what happened in the 2002 World Cup. I mean, we will never forget the moment in the 2002 World Cup was the dos a 0 moment with Mexico. But also, there's been so many dos a 0 moment in that rivalry between the U.S. and Mexico. I mean, we saw in the original dos a 0 that happened in Columbus, I think back in 2001, and Bruce Arena was part of that team, coaching that team to get the 2-0 win against Mexico, and then of course it was followed up by an even more famous dos a 0 win against Mexico in the knockout round of the 2002 World Cup. But unfortunately, that was as far as they would make, as they would lose in the quarterfinal. But to this day, that's still the furthest that the U.S. has ever gotten in the World Cup. But obviously, his time with the U.S. didn't really kind of end well, because in the 2006 World Cup, after his U.S. team had a bit of an embarrassing display, getting eliminated in the group stage, and I don't think they even won a game in that 2006 World Cup in Germany. He basically was being ousted, and basically we're looking to maybe go back to coaching in MLS, and that is exactly what happened, because right after when he was ousted from the U.S. men's national team job, the New York Red Bulls came calling. I mean, a lot of people know that Bruce Arena, during his coaching career, has been known of him being with DC and the LA Galaxy, but not a lot of people know that he was actually the head coach of the Red Bulls for a short while. Though he kind of came into that Red Bulls team that kind of was in a little bit of a chaos. And also, by the way, 2006, I think that was when they were still called the Metro Star, because I think that was the final year when they were of course called the Metro Star, before the Red Bulls Corporation bought out the name. So technically they shouldn't say New York Red Bulls, but more like New York Metro Star. But during his time, he did finish with a below 500 record, 4-3-5 during his time with the Metro Star. But they still were able to make it the playoffs as the 4th seed, though they did lose in, I think, the first round of the playoffs, and actually lost to when Bruce Arena made his name in the American soccer landscape in DC United in the playoffs. Though in the very next year, in 2007, he was able to guide the Red Bulls with a 12-7-11 record and finished 3rd in the Eastern Conference. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to guide the Red Bulls to MLS Cup, as he would actually lose to a team that he would coach later in his future, and he's actually the current head coach right now with the New England Revolution in the playoffs. So the very next year, and during the middle of the season, well, actually, I think after this year, the New York Red Bulls decided to kind of let him go, and then it seems like the Galaxy kind of came in calling to see if Bruce Arena will work out, because during that 2008 season, yeah, the LA Galaxy, it seems like they kind of had that hangover in terms of the MLS Cup that they won back in 2007, and yeah, they were not doing very well that season, and they were hoping Bruce Arena can save them. And it turns out that was not the case. He actually finished with a 2-3-5 record, easily his worst record with a team in a season. Though, of course, he just kind of came into that job. And of course, that was also one of the rare years where he actually weren't able to make it to guide his team to the playoffs, as the Galaxy actually finished 6th in the West and did not make it to the playoffs. But the very next year, this is when Bruce started to kind of find that magic that he had with DC and bring it to the Galaxy, because that very next year they would actually finish 1st in the Western Conference with a 12-6-12 record, but they did lose to RSL in MLS Cup. And then in 2010 they did even better. They finished with an 18-7-5 record, won the Supporters Shield, and that was definitely considered one of the best regular season in MLS history back then. But they also unfortunately suffered one of the biggest upset in MLS history by losing to FC Dallas in the conference final, and yeah. But now in 2011, obviously Bruce Arena, he's done so well with the Galaxy, and during his first 2.5 years, he's guided this Galaxy team to once again be a powerhouse. But there's also that question of, can he finally guide this team to win MLS Cup? And it finally happened in 2011. And not only the fact that they repeat as Supporters Shield champ, but they finally got over the hump by winning MLS Cup against the Houston Dynamo and finished the season with a 19-5-10 record. The very next year, they would repeat as champion and only become one of only the two teams to ever repeat as MLS Cup champion, as they finished that season with a 16-12 and 6 record. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. They finished with a 16-6-12 record. I actually got the win and loss there mixed up there, but they finished fourth in the Western Conference, and again, they of course won MLS Cup in that year, and I think it was also against the Houston Dynamo in 2012. Now, in 2013, they finished with a 17-7-10 record, and they finished second in the Western Conference, and or actually, no, I'm sorry, I got gone a little bit too ahead there. Let's go to 2013, when they of course finished with a 15-11-8 record, where they finished third in the Western Conference, and they had a chance to go for the three-peat, but unfortunately they lost to RSL once again, this time in the first round in the playoffs. But in 2014, they would make it 3 out of 4 years in terms of winning MLS Cup. Finished with a 17-7-10 record, finished second in the Western Conference, and won the MLS Cup against the New England Revolution. Now, in 2015, he finished the season with the Galaxy with a 14-11-9 record. Finished fifth in the Western Conference, but lose to the Seattle Sounders in the first round. And this is kind of also when the Galaxy, I think this was, I think 2015, I believe, or actually no, 2014, I think was one of the last year we saw the super team, like with Landon Donovan and Robbie B. Keane. Because I think in 2015, well, actually, I think 2015 Landon Donovan was still part of that team, but you kind of started to see there's a sign that maybe the Galaxy, that main core that they had, started to kind of age a little bit, as, they only finished fifth in the Western Conference, their lowest finish since 2008, and they, of course, got knocked out by the Seattle Sounders in the first round. Though the very next year, they kind of bounced back with a 12-16-6 record and finished third in the Western Conference, but unfortunately, they did lose to the Colorado Rapids in the second round, and that's also when Bruce Arena kind of once again got the calling of the U.S. men's national team, and that this was also during the time when the U.S. men's national team was struggling in the World Cup qualifier, and that they just fired Jurgen Klinsmann, that did a horrendous job in the first couple of games of the World Cup qualifier, and it seemed like Bruce was going to come in to trying to save the U.S. to potentially reach the World Cup, and little did we know that that did not happen, and we definitely don't have to discuss what happened on that infamous night in Cuba in Trinidad and Tobago in October of 2017. But nevertheless, he finished with a record of 10-6-2 during his time with the U.S., but one of those losses turns out to be a loss that would really kind of haunt his legacy, and kind of maybe tainted his legacy a little bit, especially with the U.S. men's national team. Though I will say that both times that he, of course, left the job, both times was really kind of the down part of the U.S. I mean, when he left the job in his first stint, after how the U.S. embarrassed himself in the World Cup in 2006, this was kind of even worse just 10 years on, where the team didn't even make it to the World Cup in Russia in 2018. Now, in 2019, he, of course, was once again back in MLS, and actually, he did take like a year off, and this is also kind of the time when we thought maybe Bruce Arena will never coach again. Maybe he was going to ride off the sunset, which, again, it's been a legendary career for Bruce Arena head coaching, and he'll still kind of regard as maybe the best head coach to ever coach in the American soccer landscape, but you just feel like his career was going to be tainted because of what happened with the U.S. and wasn't able to guide this team to the World Cup. So he decided to come back to MLS, join the New England Revolution, and he joined the team during that time when this Revs team was in a train wreck. Like, this was a team that was under Brett Friedel, and that he basically made this team to become a dumpster fire in the Eastern Conference. And although in the first year he took charge of this team, he wasn't able to guide this team into the playoffs. He at least guided this team to stability and finished 7th in the Eastern Conference. And again, this was only the second other season that Bruce Arena has coached in MLS and not guided his team to the playoffs. But the very next year, in 2020, in the COVID-shortened year, ironically, New England actually finished worst in that year. They actually finished 8th in the Eastern Conference, but we know that they made that crazy run to the Eastern Conference final before losing to the Columbus Crew, and they finished with an 8-7-8 record on that COVID-shortened year. But the very next year, this is when you started to see Bruce Arena rediscover his coaching magic in MLS and guiding a team to potentially reaching the MLS Cup, because during that season, he would actually guide this New England Revolution team to have the best regular season that any team has ever had in MLS history, with a 22-7-5 record. Won the Supporters Shield, which I believe, let's see, so he won a Supporters Shield here, he won one here. I think that's his 4th Supporters Shield that he got to a team, but we all know what happened last year in the playoffs, where I know Revs fans will always complain about that long break that they had, but still, they lost in the playoffs to NYCFC in the second round, and this is why heading into this year, even though, last season, after that loss against NYCFC, where there was an interview whether or not if Bruce Arena was going to return, there was sign that maybe he was going to retire. It seems like that was not the case, because you kind of knew that was the case, because he wants to deliver that promise to finally give this Revs team, who has been one of the most snake-bitten team in terms of the league, and being a team that has always known as the Buffalo Bills of MLS, reaching so many MLS Cup but aren't able to win one. And yeah, we'll see how this season is going to be, and whether they can, of course, accomplish that. So far, they have got off to a good start with a 1-1 and 0 record, but no, as I said before, with Bruce Arena sitting at 241, I won't be surprised he's going to reach the 250 mark by the end of the season. I mean, I'm assuming he is going to do so, and when that, of course, will happen, it's definitely another landmark to see whether or not if he can even make it 300 coaching career win in MLS. I mean, that's number is definitely going to be a bit stretched, because in order to get 300, I would say that maybe he need to coach like at least 3 or 4 more years, and his contract with the Revs, he did sign a 3-year contract, so that's a possibility that it could go, he could reach 300, but that Revs team would need to reach 17 wins, which that's definitely a lot to do. But nevertheless, what a career Bruce Arena has ever had, and there's no doubt that once he does retire, I will once again make this kind of video again, talk about his legacy, and that again, I feel like I've said before, where if he does win this MLS Cup with the Revs, that probably might be his time to walk away from the game, because he wanted to finish out as a champion, and he came close last year to do so, but if he is able to do so this year, then there's no doubt that I think he's going to think about retiring, and what a way to retire on the top of his game, and becoming the greatest head coach in the American soccer, and has just been such a pioneer to the sports in terms of the head coaching role in this game. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and what's your favorite moment of Bruce Arena, whether during his time or early in his coaching career with DC United, or during his time with the Galaxy, or even during the time that he's now coaching with New England Revolution, or even his time with coaching the national team. What's your favorite moment of him coaching these teams that have win championship and have regularly considered the best team in the league? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.